Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Saco City Council for Monday, July 13, 2020 at 6:32 p.m. Recognition of all members present. The entire City Council is present with the City Administrator, Brian Canrath. With that, moving on to item 3 of the agenda, the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to ask all councilors to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind City Administrator Canrath. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, everyone. We are back at the Zoom meetings, and we will be for the month of July, and it seems fitting. It seems that somebody higher up wanted it that way because the City Council chambers had an air conditioning issue this afternoon, so it all worked out in the end. With that, I would like to move on to item 4 under general. We have item A, a 2020 Aftermath Services LLC Pay It Forward National Video Contest. The City of Saco is the grand prize winner of the 2020 Aftermath Services LLC Pay It Forward National Video Contest. The Aftermath Cares program recognizes and celebrates the efforts of our first responders who have gone above and beyond the call of duty to help their community during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Saco Police Department submitted 2 videos in partnership with our communications department, showing how we, as your police department, have been engaging with the community during these difficult times, said Chief Clements. It is more important to state how we value and engage with our community all the time. Ken Rosa, Senior Manager of the Law Enforcement Relations for the New England region, joined the Saco Police Department on Tuesday, June 23rd, to present Saco with the grand prize of $5,000 and 150 personal protective equipment kits. The video is available on Saco's YouTube channel. Saco's Police Chief Jack Clements has decided to do something unique with the $5,000 Aftermath grant to further support the police department's commitment to community building. He contacted the Fair and Impartial Policing Organization to explore training opportunities regarding implicit bias awareness to further ensure we are fairly serving all members of our community. I would like to thank the Communications Department for their vision and creativity in making this award-winning video, as well as the Police Department for continuing to keep our community safe. Next up under item B, we have the meal program volunteer recognition. So the Saco Parks and Recreation Department, along with Age Friendly and other organizations, quickly created a program to address food insecurity issues that began to arise in our community as the pandemic took hold. The program distributed more than 3,000 meals over 13 weeks to 460 separate Saco residents. Elected officials, city staff, volunteers from the community, police officers, Saco Parks and Rec staff, restaurant owners, and other volunteers stepped up to make this initiative a success. Weekly planning meetings on Zoom, food prep, and food distribution were just some of the tasks that were done on a weekly basis. The following individuals were present at a majority of the meal program days. We appreciate these individuals for volunteering their time and going above and beyond for our community. Deputy Mayor and Ward 5 City Councilor Alan Minthorn, Ward 6 City Councilor Jody McPhail, Senator Justin Chenette, Representative Donna Bailey, Rob Biggs, Executive Director of Saco Main Street, and his daughter Ripley Biggs. Thank you to all the volunteers, elected officials, and staff who made this possible. This includes, but is not limited to, some of the local businesses that contributed to the program. Golden Rooster Restaurant, Bruchetta's Brick Oven Restaurant, Lucky Loggers Restaurant, Run-of-the-Mill Public House and Brewery, Carol Cafe Maine, the Deli and Company, Ferry Beach Retreat and Conference Center, Bradley Street Deli and Catering, Saco Valley Credit Union, the Rotary Club of Biddeford Saco, Lawyer on the Corner, Saco House of Pizza, People's Choice Credit Union, Saco and Biddeford Savings Institution, Janet Spiegel Yoga, Saco Main Street, Saco Food Pantry, and Age Friendly Saco, as well as all the officers, Officers Condon and Royal from the Saco Police Department, who switched gears from their school resource officer jobs and went to work as community service officers. And truly our folks that are behind the scenes doing the jobs that nobody else would like to do is our Saco Facilities Division. They're the ones out there in making sure our buildings are all up to code and they're safe to go in. So we are proud of our community, local businesses, elected officials, and city staff for collaborating on this and making it such a great success. So thank you very much, everyone. Item C, affirming a safe, welcoming, and diverse community. Dear Saco residents, considering the recent events across our country involving bias, racism, and hatred, we must take measures to denounce such actions while educating ourselves to facilitate a better future for our community members. As a community and a nation, individuals of different ethnicities, sexual orientations, and religious ideologies will forge our path forward. We must have a philosophy of inclusion when discussing the way ahead on any subject matter, especially the eradication of racism. We cannot solely apply blame and point fingers during difficult dialogues. We must find meaningful solutions to challenges. Our resolve must refrain from getting caught up in the rhetorical catchphrases or simplistic slogans, but endeavor to create community-based partnerships that demonstrate compassion and respect and identify realistic goals for our future. Therefore, I, William P. Doyle, Mayor of Saco, have included a proclamation in support of inclusion, social justice, and non-discrimination for council deliberation and consideration during the new business agenda of the meeting. Following discussion and alterations, I will ask the Saco City Council to support and ratify a similar resolution for our great city at our next City Council meeting on Monday, July 20th, 2020. Our local government must commit to training on cultural diversity, competency, and bias for all city staff, board and committee members, and elected leaders to ensure equitable treatment of our community members and visitors. I also asked the City Council to consider approving the formation of a mayoral ad hoc committee titled Intercultural Competency and Awareness Committee. While the committee itself will form the specific committee goals, the committee aims to bring community members together to work collaboratively to address racial inequality or bias issues in our community. The committee will recommend amendments to city policies, council ordinances or initiatives, or the renaming of different squares, streets, or parks in our community. Saco is a community of approximately 20,000 people, so bringing more residents of all different backgrounds into the discussion helps provide insight to the City Council. In closing, I sincerely hope to see the City Council adopt the items mentioned above and engage the community in these partnerships for a better Saco for everyone. Thank you very much. With that, I will move on to item 5 of the agenda. We have committee correspondence to council. Are there any committee correspondence to council at this time? I see a hand up from Councilor Minthorn. Councilor Minthorn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Transit met a couple weeks ago now. Things are rolling along as smoothly as they might, given the current situation with COVID. Fares are still zero. They will be changing probably in September. We'll be going to the new electronic fare card system and phone app and that kind of thing. So everyone's looking forward to that. There are a number of 2 new turnpike buses are on order, maybe delivered before the end of the year. There's also some trolleys on order. We just ended, as some of you are aware who have been on council a little bit longer, we had a 3-year funding arrangement to which this last year the funding was the third bump, if you will, based on some tight financial issues with the city of Biddeford. Transit decided to stay flat and not have the increase they anticipated for this year. We are going to be, as a board, coming back to all municipalities, obviously as the financial complexion of the state unfolds, with a new multi-year funding proposal for all three communities. We are still seeing a lot of pressure from our Cumberland neighbors to the north. Portland Metro is still pushing a very hard agenda with the state to try and consolidate all of the transit systems, which there are 8 in basically Portland South in the state, and consolidate those into one. The problem we see with that is that if the decision makers are in Portland, the priorities of Saco, Biddeford, and Old Orchard Beach will become secondary, if not further down the list. So we will be looking for council support to continue to keep things moving forward in a very positive direction with transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthorn. Next up is Councilor Copeland, then Councilor Gunn. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have something from the Conservation Commission. They voted on it, and they would like me to read it. Given the high number of Saco residents who drive to work, school, and other activities each day, given the known impact of greenhouse gas emissions related to driving, given that our community must take every possible action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to address the climate crisis, given that broadband access reduces greenhouse gas emissions by facilitating working and convening from home, as well as many other vital functions, including economic development and access to services such as telehealth. We, the Saco Conservation Commission, express our support for the State of Maine special referendum ballot question number 1. It's a bond issue, an act to authorize a general fund bond issue for infrastructure to improve transportation and internet connections on the July 14th, 2020 ballot.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Gunn.
And
Thank you,
Councilor
Mr.
Copeland,
Mayor.
I'm sorry, Councilor Gunn. Councilor Copeland, did you have something further?
yeah, but I'll wait until Councilor
That's
Gunn's
perfectly fine, Councilor Copeland, if you'd like to continue.
Well, I wanted to report on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, and they are working on some amazing things. If you check out their page on our website, the city website, you'll see that there's rules of the road, safety tips, and one of the things that I find interesting is that they're looking into a bicycle loaning program through the library, through the Dyer Library. So we'll see how that goes, but that's something that they're talking about. This group of folks is really charged up and looking to make all kinds of wonderful things happen for the walkers in our city and the bicyclists as well. And, you know, primary thing is safety. And the Shoreline Commission, there's two, the Army Corps of Engineers has provided us with sample partnership agreements. So, and there's a reignited spark of interest from the Army Corps of Engineers and from some local groups around here, Save Our Shores, and plus the mayor, and so there's a lot going on with that. So that's active again. I just wanted everyone to know that. And there's also something else that the Conservation Commission is working on, and that is, it's with the middle school students, and they've created a, I guess, a resolution, and it's about climate control. So there's still some things to be worked out in there, and but that's on the horizon. So we'll be looking forward to talking more about that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Copeland, I would encourage some of the folks on the bicycle committee to reach out to former Mayor Don Pylon, who tried to work with a program in Maine and New Hampshire about a loaning bike program that would follow the train centers. So it would follow the Saco train station, and then you could also return them down at Old Orchard train station and vice versa to help folks get between cities. But they may want to reach out to former Mayor Pylon, who worked on that initiative.
Well, I encourage the former mayor to email me information about that. I'd be happy to bring it up, and he can also communicate directly with them, and they're open to all kinds of ideas, and that sounds like a good one. Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the councilor liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, I'd like to share with you some wonderful news. The Maine Historic Preservation Commission has decided that the rendezvous, which for those who are not familiar, is a cemetery in Ward 4, in which the earliest known graves date to the early 18th century, is eligible for the National Registry of Historic Places. Needless to say, this is a tremendous step forward in ensuring that the burying ground, which is close to the area of the original European settlement and a valuable part of our city's heritage, will remain preserved for future generations to come. The next step will be a formal presentation to the Maine Historic Preservation Commission in order to receive a formal nomination to be forwarded to the National Registry in Washington. The presentation should be occurring sometime in the next couple of months. It should be noted that by federal standards, they intend to treat the grounds throughout the process as if it was already on the registry. On behalf of HPC and myself, I would like to thank Emily Cole Prescott and Isabel Exley for their tireless work in making this happen. An incredible link to our community's past will be protected in no small part due to their collective efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Gunn. There was a glitch. Can you just restate the first sentence of what you stated? There was a glitch and it didn't come over well on my end, so I don't know if it came out well on everybody else's.
The first sentence?
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As council liaison to the Historic Preservation Commission, I'd like to share with you this news.
Okay. Maybe the next sentence. It's just that there was a pause in the feed when you were reading. So
What part, Mr. Mayor, did you hear me?
The location.
the location.
Location.
Which cemetery? Just before the Ward 4.
Yeah, okay. The Rendezvous Burying Point Cemetery in Ward 4.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Gunn. Sorry about that. Had some technical difficulties. Okay, moving on. Any further committee correspondence to council? Seeing no further committee correspondence to council, we're moving on to item 6, public comment. City Administrator Kane, have you received any public comment in writing?
I have not, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, if there's anybody who would like to speak before the council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform and you'll be unmuted to speak. Again, those wishing to speak before the council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform and you will be unmuted to speak to the council. Seeing no hands raised and nobody seeking recognition, moving on to item 8, consent agenda. We have item A, the application for a solid waste permit for Maine Water Solutions. Any adjustments to the agenda? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion's been made by Councilor Minthorn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnston. Any discussion?
Just that it was Maine Waste Solutions.
Thank you. Maine Waste Solutions. Any further? Moving on, a roll call vote. Councilor Archer,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Yes.
Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland,
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail,
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 9, action items. We have item A, a public hearing, renewal application for a special entertainment permit for Biddeford Saco's Elks Lodge number 1597.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Biddeford Saco Elks Lodge number 1597 has applied for a renewal of their special entertainment permit. The permit will be concurrent with the establishment's liquor license. The applicant has paid all applicable permit fees, and the clerk has properly advertised the public hearing in accordance with the Saco City Code, Chapter 93, Entertainment 93-2. I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Gunn, seconded by Councilor Minthorn to open the public hearing. Any discussion? A roll call vote. Councilor Archer,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Yes.
Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland,
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail.
Yeah.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to open the public hearing at 6:54 p.m. The public hearing is now open. If there is anyone who would like to speak before the city council, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom platform and you'll be unmuted to speak to the council. Seeing no hands raised and nobody seeking recognition, Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to close the public hearing and be it ordered that the city council grant the renewal application submitted by Biddeford Saco Elks Lodge number 1597 for a special entertainment permit to be concurrent with the establishment's current liquor license. I move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Gunn, seconded by Councilor Minthorn to close and approve. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. Councilor Archer,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Yes.
Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland,
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail,
Yes.
Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item B, removal of outdated health insurance policy. Councilor Minthorn.
Thank you. The health insurance policy 2004 was on the policy portion of the city's website. This policy is outdated and inaccurate. An updated policy is located in the non-union personnel policy. It is recommended the council votes to remove the health insurance policy 2004. Several exhibits. Staff recommends removal of the health insurance policy 2004. I move to remove the outdated health insurance policy. I move to approve the order.
Motion's been made by Councilor Minthorn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Gunn. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. Councilor Archer,
Aye.
and Councilor Purdy,
Yes.
Counselor Gunn,
Yes.
Counselor Copeland,
Yes.
Counselor Minthorn,
Yes.
Counselor McPhail,
Yes.
Counselor Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to item C, removal of outdated equal employment opportunity policy. Counselor Minthorn.
Thank you. The Equal Employment Opportunity Policy 2003 was on the policy page of the city's website. The policy is outdated and recently updated policy is located in the employee handbook. It is recommended council vote to remove the outdated and unneeded policy. There are 2 exhibits. Staff recommends removal of the EEOC policy 2003. I move to remove the outdated EEO policy 2003 and move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Minthorn, second by Counselor Johnston. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, roll call vote. Counselor Archer?
Aye.
Counselor Purdy?
Yes.
Counselor Gunn?
Yes.
Counselor Copeland?
Yes.
Counselor Minthorn?
Yes.
Counselor McPhail?
Yes.
Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item D, first reading, Chapter 81 review, 2 Marguerite Road, map 10, lot 17. Counselor Purdy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this year, the City Council initiated its review of land donation to Habitat for Humanity. Since then, the Leedbergs, abutting property owners at 343 Flag Pond Road, have approached the city asking to purchase some of the city's land that abuts their property. Staff reached out to Habitat representatives and asked that Habitat share a copy of the survey they were undertaking of the site. Staff received a copy of the survey, which shows several structures owned by the Leedbergs encroaching on the city's property. At this time, and after reviewing several options, a positive solution seems to be to sell some of the city's land to the Leedbergs, retain at least 30,000 square feet of land for the city, and donate the remaining land to Habitat for Humanity. I move to approve the first reading and schedule a public hearing on August 3rd, 2020 regarding the following order, in substantially the same form as presented. Be it ordered that the city administrator is hereby authorized to execute sale of approximately 10,000 square feet of land and to execute all necessary documents to donate specified portion of land of 2 Marguerite Road to the Habitat for Humanity.
Second.
Motion's been made by Counselor Purdy, second by Counselor Minthorn. Any discussion? Counselor Johnston.
Thank you. I figured out the counselors might have comments, but I guess I've got several questions. First, I'm curious how these structures got on city's property to begin with without the city knowing. I mean, generally you have to pull permits for those type of things. And second, I'm looking at this map here, and it looks like are we talking about the structures on lot 48 and 47, all those structures being on the city's property?
Mr. Mayor.
City Administrator Canrath.
Yeah, so I believe there's 2 sheds or storage buildings that are over onto the city's lot, but I believe Emily Cole Prescott may be on. If we could bring her in, she'll have more of a detailed explanation if we could.
Andrew, can we promote Emily Cole Prescott if she's available? Thank you, Andrew.
Hi, everyone.
City Planner Emily Cole Prescott, thank you for joining us tonight. Were you able to hear the question posed by Councilor Johnson?
I believe, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe there were 2 questions. One, when the structures were put on the city property, if they were done with permits, why the city didn't know. I think that was the first one. In answer to that, I do not know why the city was not aware of why these were not on, why these were on the city's property. It's possible they were put out there and they've been out for many years, and Brian would like us to get some more information on when the structures were placed. I don't have that data in front of me right now. The second question was the structure's location, and what you see before you is a survey that was provided by Habitat folks, and the encroachment area is somewhat of a triangular piece that's labeled out in a dashed dotted line. I don't know how easy that is to see. I think the map was sideways, but there were several structures. I think there's about 4 property of on the city's property that the Liedbergs would like consideration of potentially purchasing.
Thank you, Emily. Councilor Johnson, does that answer the questions?
Yeah, I mean, to the best of our ability, it does. I mean, again, I have significant concerns that it would look like 4 or 5 structures that have been placed on the city's land, and our response appears to be to now sell land when we've kind of already promised, or at least had discussions about giving this land to the Habitat for Humanity. I mean, back when they came before us, I know there was discussion about potentially 2 parcels out here. And I know at the last planning board meeting, myself and several other board members had concerns that there would be enough acreage left for this to be subdivided out to meet, well, I don't think presently it meets current, but future requirements for the zoning ordinance. So, I mean, I guess I can be okay with the sale of this portion, but I want to be certain before we do that Habitat for Humanity is really certain that they're going to be able to meet those setbacks and be able to get 2 lots out of this. I mean, it kind of makes this lot an odd shape. So that would be my first issue. And then the second one, I want to know if Director Summers feels as though the land that we would be retaining would be adequate for its present use and any future expansion of that lot for the play surface. Because, I mean, as I just stated, the zoning requirements out here will be reducing. So you would actually be able to get more housing lots out here, and I want to be certain that we have enough space as it's built out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Planner Prescott and City Administrator Canrath, can you have those questions answered and included in the next packet for the 20th?
Of course.
Thank you very much. Councilor Copeland.
My questions are similar. Help me understand. So the Liedberg property is lot 49 and 50, and yet they spill over to 48 and 47. Is that correct? Emily?
Mr. Mayor.
Planner Prescott.
I don't have the map directly in front of me, but I believe that is the case. The properties spill over into that triangular shape that you see with a few structures.
So do we know?
Lot 47. Sorry.
So they do spill over into 47 and 48?
I believe it's just 47. Let's look at the map.
Who owns 48?
I believe that's the Liedberg property. Is that right, Emily? You don't know the map, but
There's
Let
40.
me pull up the packet so I can look with you.
Yes, please. And I would like to know how long those structures have been there, if there were building fees that they were trying to avoid, or, I mean, people, other people follow the rules and don't just build stuff all over the place, especially not on their own property. I find this a little bit disturbing, quite frankly. And if these are things that, it's a dog pen or whatever, these things can be moved onto their own property. Why don't they? Why aren't they? Why are we selling this off? And then that's the other question I have is what cost? I mean, what is the value? You know, all the memos and so forth, nothing touched on what the value would be. So I need much more information to make an informed decision here.
It would just be assessed value. And Emily, I don't know if you can talk about just, you know, we've been working with Habitat and just their comfort level or their sort of view so far on this. Maybe you can just shed some light on where they currently are, if that might alleviate some concerns here.
Of course, thank you. So we have been in contact with Habitat throughout the entire process. The Liedbergs reached out to Brian right before COVID actually, and had a lot of concerns because they did not have a clear understanding of where their property lines had run, obviously. So I understand that that's not the city's fault by any means, and I understand where you're coming from. There are several options that were looked at internally before COVID hit, actually, because we were trying to get this to council sooner. And, you know, the Liedbergs asked to bring this forward as a Chapter 81 request to potentially purchase the land. So the other options that were reviewed were looking at possibly Habitat has helped people move structures before. And another thing is keeping structures on the site and offering some sort of easement. So there were different ideas that were brought to the table, different ideas that even City Attorney Tim Murphy had brought to the table that we had looked at in the background. But this did come forward as a request, and ultimately, as you know, it's up to City Council to make a decision on whether or not land is sold anyway. So we're bringing it forward to let you know what the request was from the abutter. As far as the question of structures, some of those structures, it's listed as apparent encroachment area, sheds, huts, dog pen, etc., approximate location. That is the area. There's 1, 2, 3, there's 4 structures. It looks like potentially one structure has a small addition to it, or one has 2 structures right next to each other. It is encroaching onto what is shown on the survey as lot 47 and lot 48. Those lots 47 and 48, and you see 43, 44, all of those lot cuts were from a previous division that had been done, and they're on the survey just showing us the history of the lot splits that have been made years ago. The current lot that sits today is not necessarily those smaller lots. It is the wider city parcel that you see the bolded lines, the folded property lines on. And I'd be happy to compile information as Brian feels appropriate to bring forward to the next council meeting.
Well, I would like to, you know, maybe some photographs of what this is. I'd like to do a drive-by to see what it looks like. I mean, people can't just like put up stuff all over the place. I mean, that's not fair. We don't want to set a precedence and say, no, yeah, you know, you did it. All right, just give us a little bit of money. And I still haven't heard what the valuation of that land is. And then are we going to have to spend legal fees to have documents drawn up for meets and bounds? We're going to have it resurveyed. This seems like way out of what we need to be doing here. We want to help Habitat for Humanity. This other stuff is way offline for me. If I had to vote right now, it would be absolutely no. But I would be willing to listen to more information, and I'm going to do a drive-by.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Archer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What do we typically do when someone builds unpermitted property? Typically, the way I understand it is we ask them we tear it down in some cases. Is that correct? Because there's a couple things. Again, you just don't build wherever you feel like it. Even if you, I mean, I get it. I own a couple properties, and I sometimes have to go and find that little post in the ground and be like, where's my property line? I get that. That's part of home ownership. But again, I also want to look at what is the lost revenue. There's Councilor Copeland was mentioning that there's a valuation to these properties. I can tell you, I put a shed on my rental property. I'm paying the city next year $25 a year. I don't mind paying it, but again, These are fees that the city should have been collecting that we didn't. This was a way to, again, the owner of that building may not have, or the property may not have known. I get that. But in the end, there's still some fees that in revenue that the city is out because of this. Now, yes, they may be coming to us with a solution to buy the property. But again, once you do this, you bring everything open to scrutiny. And that's what's happening right now is then why is this here? Why is it there? I would say move it. If it's movable, move it back onto your property. I'm not interested in really selling it this case because we kind of already gave it away. We've already given it away. We can't then just go back to Habitat for Humanity and be like, oh, sorry, they did something they shouldn't have done a few years ago or whenever. These are my concerns. One, we had some lost revenue because of this, because someone didn't want to go through the permitting process, which, if I remember correctly, if you don't do that, you do risk losing your building, whatever you built. Two, this is why you go through the permitting process. The city would have said this isn't your property, which would have solved that problem. And three, we already gave it, we've already donated it. And then to say, hey, we're willing to sell it just doesn't settle with me right. So those are my concerns.
Thank you, Councilor Archer. Everyone, I just want to remind folks that the property that we're talking about is owned by the city of Saco, and the assessing department completed a review of the available deeds verifying that the city took ownership of the property in 12/29/1981 through the tax foreclosure process. I was one when they took ownership of this property. And I'm sure many of the folks involved in legal issues they know what adverse possession is. Adverse possession is when you put something on other person's land and you take care of it for a certain amount of time. I want to think off the top of my head, it's 20 years, but don't quote me on it. The fact of the matter is, can you identify when this person did this? No, I don't know if anybody can other than the owner of the building that put it there.
And that's litigation.
That's
litigation to go through that.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But do we want to go through litigation to
No, why
remove
don't they just put them back
this
on their own
process?
property? No.
Councilor Copeland, I think that was discussed at some point, and this is the process that they've come up with to resolve the issue. And I do believe that Habitat for Humanity is okay with this, and City Administrator Canrath can confirm or deny
Yeah, that's what I was,
whether they.
that's what I was getting
Go
at Emily earlier. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Emily, but Habitat is supportive of this resolution. Is that correct?
Yes, I've let Habitat know since this concern came up from the abutter that it was something that we were looking into because the abutter had approached the city asking to purchase land. And when someone approaches a city to purchase land, usually we do follow that Chapter 81 review process. That's how it's outlined for. So trying to bring this forward, and I appreciate everyone's comments.
Thank you, Emily. Councilor Minthorn.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Looking at the drawing, and I was just on Google Maps looking at the parcel in question. I think there may be a slightly altered position the city should take. The small building that's on lot 44, I think could be easily moved back over to lot 48 or even to lot 49. It's not that large of a structure. And that would resolve any of the encroachment issues on lot 44. As far as the other two buildings that are on 48, 47, when you look at the property, these were way off to the side of what they're currently using. They have plenty of acreage on lot 49 and 50, where these buildings could be relocated over to 49 or 50. Won't say it would be easy, won't say it would be cheap, but it could be done. I think if nothing more, move everything over to 48 And then if, you know, they can, if they can get everything on 48, we'll sell them 48. And that way you retain at least a third of 47 for habitat. It looks to me like the property line between 48 and 49 is the habitat parcel in question. And if that's the case, I mean, I understand it's been a long time and all that, but I mean, if my neighbors had me building in their backyard, I don't think they'd be real happy. And I mean, there's some undeveloped land right behind my house that, you know, we know where the property lines are, the stakes are in the ground, but it's kind of a communal area for your yard waste and stuff, and nobody's had an issue with it from all sides. But still, we all know where the lines are, and I would never think of building a structure on my neighbor's property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Minthar. Councilor Johnston, then Councilor Copeland. Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. I can appreciate, you know, Habitat trying to be potentially good neighbors in the future. My concern is they haven't submitted anything, my knowledge, to the planning board. So it's kind of hard to envision how this lot would be developed. And my greater concern is that, you know, carving this out affects them building out those lots somehow. I can't tell today how it would be. And in the end, eventually these properties end up owned by somebody else. So I'd prefer to, you know, avoid any unintended consequences that they might have to deal with in the future when they discover that, you know, they have these structures located close to their properties that are eventually built. So, I mean, if Habitat's okay with it, I'd at least like to see some kind of preliminary drawing as where they would place a building, so that we can have a better idea before, you know, council approves this, and then they have to go through the planning process, and they get to the planning board, and the planning board has issues based on us having sold off this other 10,000 square feet. I mean, that's my larger concern with this. I mean, obviously, I'm not very pleased with everybody else, as everybody else isn't, with them building the structures. But as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, you know, it could have been done prior to my birth. Doesn't make it right. And that's something else we need to address, which I will touch upon in council comments.
Councilor Copeland.
Well, I appreciate that they have reached out and that you've gone through this 81 process or whatever. Still remains, somebody just took it upon themselves. I mean, not everybody can do that. And, you know, we have to, I've had conversations with Dick Lambert. The rules are for everyone. No one is above them. We don't have above the law here. I'm certainly not, nobody is. So they have, you know, I need to go by and see them, or if you can provide photographs, because I don't want to go on somebody else's property, but that's just not right. So I'm going to stand by, that is not right. It's not what anybody else can do. They didn't apply for building permits. They weren't inspected. They haven't been paying taxes on them. And it could potentially affect the other lots when new people who, you know, are in need have their houses built there. So I think this has got a lot of problems.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Councilor Archer.
Hi, yes, I just want to add one more thing, and it's really piggybacking off of like the collection of what Councilor Johnson and Councilor Copeland have in terms of Habitat for Humanity. There's this concept called power dynamics. And if someone gives me something of value and wants a little bit back, I almost feel like I might want to say yes because of that power dynamic. So I'm a little concerned that maybe Habitat for Humanity just wanted to make sure, like, hey, you gave it to us, you need a little bit back. When again, I don't want it to create those long-term problems just because it's what they think they should have done. Again, I just want to be cognizant that there is this thing called power dynamics, and I don't want that being part of the discussion. Yes. No.
Thank you, Councilor Archer.
For your mini chair.
Okay. Any further discussion? City Planner Prescott, can you answer any of those questions that were posed, or would you like to just wait and answer them at the next, when this comes up again?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have looked to make sure that Habitat could indeed still get at least 2 lots under the proposed zoning. We can certainly reach back out to them and ask for a potential drawing of what that would look like. I'm sure they'd be happy to work with us on that. As far as the planning board review process for their potential lots, if they stay with 2 lots and that's it, they do not need a planning board review process because it does not trigger a subdivision review. So there will be no requirement for planning board if 2 lots are done. But of course, we would get building permits. There'd be a building permit process that have to undergo for any new home construction.
Thank you, City Planner Prescott. Councilor Johnston, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
It's related but unrelated. I wanted to bring it up because I had this conversation with Deputy Chief Pendleton previously. We've had some initial conversations at the planning board level about sprinkling single-family homes, particularly in the rural areas. And he and I were discussing this in particular since the city is gifting this lot. He and myself would like it to be conditioned upon sprinklers being installed in these homes, or 1 or 2 homes here. So I've kind of thrown that out to the council now. The way the motion's written, it's kind of all joined together. So I'm basically letting you know now because it is something that I would offer as an amendment when we vote on the second amendment, or on the second and final.
Thank you, Councilor Johnston. Councilor Copeland.
First, just on that, fire sprinklers are great, but they're very expensive. I know that. Is that part of the zoning requirement?
Currently, no. The discussion has been to consider including it, but it's not as cost prohibitive as it was in the past. And so, I defer to the deputy chief to explain that better because it's more his wheelhouse. But from the conversations I've had with him and the presentation he gave to the planning board, it does seem to be more affordable than they used to be. But again,
because 15 years ago, I got an estimate of $8,000 to put sprinklers in a building in Portland, in a home in Portland. And that, these guys are on a shoestring budget. I would hate to see that affect the project. But I mean, I appreciate sprinklers. I mean, it's good thing. But what I was going to ask about was if we could have our code enforcement go out there and look at these structures. That's what he does, right? So now that this has come up and it's under our nose, because he's got 3 different lots that he's got different buildings on, not counting his own. And that's just, I think our code enforcement should be involved in this.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Planner Prescott, has code enforcement been out to the property since the discussions began? At this time, I'm going to ask that we promote Code Enforcement Officer Dick Lambert to speak before the council. Andrew, can you promote to Code Enforcement Officer Lambert, please? Thank you very much. Code Enforcement Officer Lambert, thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, sorry, I'm a little relaxed in the look. I'm on vacation, but I thought I'd join you tonight to see the Berry Road discussion, and this came up also. Yeah, we haven't been out to take a look at it. Be happy to do so. There's a lot of misconception on these accessory buildings by the public. A lot of times they don't think they need a permit because they're such small buildings. They're not permanent. Well, they're not permanent. They'll be there for a while, and we really don't know the age of them. So we'll do some research and get to the bottom of it and get you a report by the next meeting, if that's all right.
Thank you, Code Enforcement Officer Lambert. That would be great. Any further discussion? Okay, back to the motion that was made by Councilor Purdy, second by Councilor Minthorn. Roll call vote, Councilor Archer
Aye.
and Councilor Purdy.
Yep.
And Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland.
Sorry, I'm going back to see what the motion was.
This is the first reading, so we'd be setting up a public hearing and a second and final reading.
I'm not ready for that process to begin. I'm going to vote no.
Okay, Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail,
Yes.
Councilor Johnston.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Moving on to item E, we have an update to the social media policy. Councilor Copeland.
One second. I'm getting there. Okay. At the City Council meeting on January 21st, 2020, the City Council adopted their Rules of Order of Business, which included a communications section. When reviewing the communications section, we discussed amending the social media policy that was adopted in 2017. This document was reviewed by legal counsel on June 10th, 2020. I move to accept the amended social media policy and further update the employee handbook to include this version of the policy.
Motion's been made by Councilor Copeland, second by Councilor Minthorn. Any discussion? I believe Communications Director Roy is available if there are any questions.
I think it looks great. It talks about, you know, people being respectful and inclusive, and I think that there are protocols for reaching out on social media and all that. So I hope everybody's read it, and there we are.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Communications Director Roy, would you like to say anything about the updated social media policy?
Sure. So record retention, legal compliance, and risk primary focused. And then just a reminder, if you want to review the council rules and order of business, that has a little bit more information about the expanded communication program.
Any discussion? Further discussion? Seeing no councilors seeking recognitions and no hands raised, roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very, very much. Moving on to item F, an amendment to interest rate for fiscal year 2021, correction of state error. Councilor Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. State Treasurer's Office mistakenly posted the maximum allowable interest rate on delinquent property taxes as 9%. The actual allowable rate is 8%. City Council must amend its adopted maximum allowable interest rate to remain within state guidelines. Be it ordered that the City Council amend the interest rate for delinquent fiscal year 2021 property taxes to 8%. I move to approve the order.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Gunn, second by Councilor Copeland. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion. Oh, Councilor Archer.
Yes, I don't think it will apply to us. I think we got lucky on this one because we got it early. Has anybody paid an interest rate based on 9%? I think we're all set this year, but if so, they would be due a credit or a refund.
City Administrator Canrath, has anybody, I believe we suspended fees for COVID-19,
We
but has
did, but
anybody
that's-
paid any delinquent FY 2021 property tax?
We did, that's correct, but I guess to be sure, I'd want to ask our finance director, but if you want to promote her, but my thought is we did suspend that, so my guess would be no.
Yeah, that was fine.
We're going to bring forward Finance Director Salas to answer that question definitively for us.
Hi all.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Welcome, Finance Director Salas. Thank you for joining us and bringing along a guest.
Can you say hi?
Hi.
So pretty easy question to answer. No one has been late yet on fiscal year 2021 taxes because the deadline is not until September. So we're all good.
Finance Director Salas, thank you for that definitive answer. And again, thank you for joining us. Council, any further discussion or comment? Seeing no hands raised and no councilors seeking recognition, a roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Moving on to item G, proposed zoning amendment, automobile dealer use with performance standards in the I-2 zoning district. That is Councilor Johnston.
The planning board began review of proposed zoning amendment to add automobile dealer use with performance standards to the I-2 zoning district. Per section 230-1401, proposed zoning amendments to be initiated by the planning board by public petition or by the city council. Subsection B indicates that the city council shall refer ordinance revisions to the planning board. The purpose of this proposed ordinance amendment is to allow site of the previous public works facility to be developed by the potential purchaser who has been selected by city council by a 6-1 vote. To ensure timelines are met, the planning board has scheduled its public hearing about this proposed amendment on July 21, 2020 at 6 p.m. The planning board initiated its review of the ordinance amendment, which staff proposed, provided some feedback, and indicated to staff that it may have revisions on the proposed ordinance language once the public hearing process commences. City staff recommends that the city council formally refer the proposed zoning amendment to the planning board for its report. I move to refer the proposed zoning amendment to the planning board per section 230-1401 of the city's ordinances.
Second.
Been made by Councilor Copeland. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion and no councilors seeking recognition, roll call vote. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
And Councilor Purdy? Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland? Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
And Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Now we move on to item 10, new business. We have the intercultural competency and committee formation discussion. City Council, as I mentioned in my earlier statement, is time to address intercultural competency and awareness in our community. Attached is a sample proclamation in support of inclusion, social justice, and non-discrimination borrowed from the town of South Berwick. It is important for Saco to proclaim a similar message to make it clear that we are a welcoming and inclusive community. The goal is to discuss, prepare, and review a proclamation at council meeting on Monday, July 20th. In addition, the formation of a new ad hoc committee, which will be named the Intercultural Competency and Awareness Committee, will bring members of the community together to address racial inequality and other bias issues that need attention. The formation of this committee is scheduled to be an action item for the July 20th council meeting. I urge the council to discuss the formation of this committee and any thoughts they have regarding these issues. Thank you. So as you can see, in the packet, you have been provided that has been borrowed from South Berwick, but also it's been the talk of many communities in southern Maine, and this came out of the Southern City Administrator and group. So that is being looked at all across southern Maine, and I'm sure it's also being looked at in similar communities all across the United States. But given the recent incidents here and abroad, I thought it important that we come forward with a resolution, and then we come forward with not only a resolution, but we come forward with some action in the formation of a committee and the review of policies, initiatives, and so forth. And we are all aware of the petition that's out there to rename Pepperell Square. And we have not received that formal petition yet, but we know it's out there. And I think this committee would be well-versed to handle that community discussion, because that's what it is, a community discussion. With that, any discussion or comments? Councilor Copeland.
I'd like to be on that committee.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further discussion? Councilor Johnston.
Thank you. Just when selecting members, I would just suggest we try to be as diverse as possible. You know, I recognize that Saco in the state of Maine isn't really all that diverse to begin with, but I think it's important if we're going to talk about inclusion. You know, we have members of the community that might actually have some experiences to share. Thank you.
Councilor Johnston, I wholeheartedly agree. Thank you very much. And we are talking about having folks from other committees also be part of this committee to intertwine some of these committees. From historic, you know, from the Historic Preservation Committee, having one of their members sit on this committee as a liaison, having from some other areas of the community sit on there. So we are looking at a very broad committee that will give recommendations to the city council and city staff. So Councilor Gunn.
I thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just curious as to who is going to write the resolution. Is it going to be by an informal group or by just one person?
It is going to be written by staff and provided in the council packet, but anything that you would like to have included or anything you would like to have omitted, please send to the city administrator so that he can properly silo those documents all together and prepare a resolution that meets everybody's goals and objectives. When I say everybody, I mean the city council as the elected officials.
Thank you.
And again, the Intercultural and Competency Committee will, as I said in the original statement, they'll form their own committee goals once the committee is formed and functioning. Like many of our other committees across the city. So, any further discussion? There's no formal action tonight. There's no need to take a vote. Just letting you know that this will be coming up again on the 20th. So if you do have any suggestions, any omissions, any alterations, please send those to City Administrator Kainrath so he can prepare a well-balanced document for us to consider on the 20th. And again, start looking through your own wards for people that might want to be on this committee. We want to make sure that we have a representative, a community representative from each ward. So, okay, thank you very much. If there's no further questions, no further discussion, we'll move on to item B. Okay, Item B is the unaccepted portion of Berry Road discussion. So for some counselors, this is a repeat from a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, there was some new information that came to light today that was being proposed. So at this point in time, I'd accept the motion to table this item until the next meeting. We didn't want to bring forward something with new information that was provided this afternoon. That's been a common request of the council, that if there's new information that arrives on Monday, we table the item and move it to the next agenda. So I would like to have that tabled until the July 20th, 2020 agenda.
So moved.
There's made by Councilor Johnston, second by Councilor Copeland. Tabling motion, so there's no discussion. Roll call vote. Councilor Archer,
Aye.
Councilor Purdy,
Yes.
Councilor Gunn,
Yes.
Councilor Copeland,
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn,
Yes.
Councilor McPhail,
Yes.
and Councilor Johnson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We are tabling that till 7:20. With that, we are moving on to item 11, which is administrative update from City Administrator Canrath.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick items, starting with City Hall operations. City Hall is now open to the public, if you didn't already know. We have experienced some significant but manageable lines out the door. They seem to be worse in the morning and then thin towards the afternoon. So that's been happening over the past about 2 weeks, but it's gone very smoothly. It's gone pretty well. Everyone's been very cooperative. I think we're respecting social distancing, wearing masks. And I just want to thank everyone for their efforts in putting this together, especially the first floor finance staff who was on the front lines of this. They've done a tremendous job and have been real just troopers and all this, and they're willing to take this on, and their grace during this difficult time. So thank you to all of them. I'd also like to thank in particular our facility staff, Don Roth, and his staff, because they put a lot of work into putting this plan together, as well as so many others, Emily Roy, others on our subcommittee who all worked pretty hard at putting together this reopening plan, and I'm just happy to report that it's gone very well. And I think we've dodged a bullet in many ways by doing appointment only for that month, getting many people through the door, and then just the past 2 weeks have gone, I think, much better than we could have anticipated. So thank you to all of them, and we expect it to get just smoother from here as we work through the long backlog of city business. A reminder that Election Day is tomorrow, July 14th. Please get out and vote at the community center. Polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Absentee ballots, of course, are due by the time the polls close. And we also have our new drop box on the Cutts Avenue side of City Hall where you can place your absentee ballot. Public Works Facility, the purchase and sale agreement for 351 North Street has now been signed, and there is an anticipated closing date of October 2nd, 2020. Finally, just for me, one last thing. This was a tremendous success, another area where the city really led during COVID-19. We served approximately 3,000 meals, contributed approximately $20,000 to local restaurants, and received about $12,000 in generous support from community sponsors. So thank you again to all of them, just a tremendous effort. One last update from the Finance Department, capital lease RFP notification. The city of Saco is seeking proposals for tax exempt capital lease in the amount of $343,358 for 5 years. Proposals are due to City Finance Director Glenn Salas no later than July 27th at 5 p.m. Please include rate, additional fees, amortization schedule, and any other information needed to complete the financing. Further details can be found on the city's website. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, City Administrator Canrath, and welcome back from vacation. Are there any questions for City Administrator Canrath? Seeing no questions. We are moving on to council discussion and comment. Any council discussion and comment? Councilor Archer, then Councilor Copeland. Councilor Archer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to bring up about a month ago, maybe, one of our constituents was attacked on school property by a dog. I know the mayor's aware, and some of us are aware of who that was. There were criminal charges being drafted or something to that nature. It was related to the dog attack itself. It's come to my attention that we don't have any signs or anything. State 3911, I mean, leashed or under that is the actual second part of that. And I was just wondering what's the possibility if we can just get up a couple signs throughout some of our public parks. Again, I'm worried stuff happens. It is public property, and when you have dogs that are a little aggressive or a little too rambunctious, and someone gets hurt. And it was my understanding that there was also a child in the same territory. So I guess that was adding to issues related to dogs. I'm not saying I'm not interested in maybe not banning dogs by any means, but again, putting up some signs that relate to Title VII dogs at large.
Thank you, Councilor Archer. City Administrator Canrath, can we look into properly notice, especially parks and schools?
Yes, we're gonna have that discussion internally here. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Copeland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that Saco's beautiful beaches are open. We ask that beachgoers be responsible and wear masks when coming onto and leaving the beach. If not for your own safety, consider the other vulnerable people. Take your trash out with you and their nests alone. We have had an incident. They're federally protected. The fines are $25,000 and jail time, actually. We have had one nest disturbed and a chick killed. So they are marked off. They are in, I don't know, what do you call those things, Jody? The enclosures that they're in, like the webbing enclosures.
Yeah, they're basically pen-style structures that are placed over the nets.
Okay.
Enough room for the birds to go in. They're very visible, right out in the open.
Right. And somebody went in there and destroyed the nest. The parent birds were apparently stressed, and they killed one of the two babies. So that's just completely unacceptable, totally illegal, and it's a federal crime. And there are federal folks looking into that. So leave the nests alone. We heard from Councilor Archer that you need to leash your dog. Certainly you need to leash them at the beach between April 1st and I think September 30th. Because the animals, not their fault, they'll want to go up into the dunes, and we're trying to protect our dunes. And we're also trying to protect the sunbathers and the people who want to walk on the beach. Everybody thinks their dog is fine until they find out that they're not. So leash your dog. And the other issue that we have down there, in addition to people leaving trash, they're leaving their dog dew on the beach, which is totally disgusting. It's unhealthy. When you go to the beach and you bring an animal, bring a little bag to take it out and take it out. This way we can all enjoy our incredible natural resources, let our children play and relax. So I'm probably preaching to the choir because those of us in Saco are pretty good about this stuff, and we do have visitors that don't know our ways, and so I encourage people to point them to the signs at the beginning of the beach when they walk on. There are signs about this. So another thing is I wanted to give kudos to our Saco Parks and Rec lifeguards. There was a father and a son who were caught in a riptide outside of the station or whatever of the lifeguards, and they saved their lives, and that's wonderful. So it's also important to realize that the beach can be dangerous, and go ahead and look up on the internet about riptides, but the real simple thing is don't try and swim into it. Swim sideways on the same side as the shore, and you'll get out of it faster, just FYI. And then we have some real issues down here in Ward 4 with parking And I think that, and I've asked the city administrator and the mayor to put it on an agenda coming up soon, because what happens is when people are down there and they're not being safe, they're not wearing masks, they're not, most people are keeping together and so forth, but it becomes so crowded down there. And I have heard from several residents of Saco in Ward 4 and outside of Ward 4 that won't go to the beaches now because people are just being disrespectful. So I think that we need to have a conversation about that. And one of the things is that there is a state park just around the corner here. So there is a place where people can go in a parking lot, not park on our streets and in front of our neighbors' houses, and go to that beach. And there are many, you know, you go down by Pine Point, this is Scarborough Beach, it's residents only. There are many towns that have residents only. So I'm not saying that we have to do that, but maybe we can do, you know, the parking at Bayview for residents only and give special residents only parking passes there. So that, you know, those of us who pay all these taxes can use the beach. But I think that we shouldn't just go by what I'm saying. I think we should have a real discussion on this. And I have asked the mayor and the city administrator to put it on the on an agenda soon. I have people following up with me. It wasn't on this agenda. So so please, we'd like to talk about this. The whole community should talk about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Copeland. Any further council discussion and comment? Just so the council's aware, there will be some, there will be something coming on the 7/20 agenda to discuss options for how to get out information to beachgoers about how to be respectful of other folks and our habitat down there. So there will be some ideas coming for our 20th agenda. With that, any further council discussion and comment? Seeing no further discussion and comment, moving on. There's no executive session tonight. There's no report from executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Made by Councilor Minthorn. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Purdy. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, no hands raised, roll call vote on adjournment. Councilor Archer?
Aye.
Councilor Purdy?
Yes.
Councilor Gunn?
Yes.
Councilor Copeland?
Yes.
Councilor Minthorn?
Yes.
Councilor McPhail?
Yes.
Councilor Johnston?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to adjourn at 7:55 p.m. I want to thank everybody for working with us with the moving parts and pieces that we had to go through this week. And just hope everyone is doing well. So be safe and stay healthy, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Same to you.